Welcome to the Media Cat Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pigger, editor at the magazine, and for today's pod, we're talking about psychedelics. That's you heard that right. And no, I haven't snapped, although that's probably debatable. I say we because I have a little person on my journey into the cosmic or the trip or whatever you want to call it, and should probably debunk all the things I'm just saying. As a person, my guest, Tara Austin. Tara is a behavioral and brand strategist. But also, more importantly, a psychedelic evangelist and campaign director for PAR Global. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So, off camera, we were talking about your job titles. I thought maybe we could just start there. Apparently, psychedelic evangelist. Should I not be saying that?
Well, I like it, and I've been using it for a little while to describe what it is I try and do and spread the word about psychedelic medicine. But the comms guy that I'm working with at the moment, that he's joined the campaign, and he's saying to me that it's a bit too culty. I should say advocate or lobbyist or something that sounds a little bit less weird for people. But it's true. I consider myself to be very evangelical about the medicine, and that's what brings me here.
I think it's fine. If you were in America, maybe, because America loves a cult. So. Maybe you should just describe yourself as psychedelic cult leader.
Yeah, I think Brits take it with the intention with which it's meant, which is I love talking about this stuff. I believe in it, and I want to share that with other people.
That's good. I guess back to first things first. Can you say what PAR Global does?
Yes. So PAR is a lobby group, an advocacy group that was set up. We were founded only last year. From a group of volunteers who want to spread the word about the potential benefits of psilocybin. So PAR stands for Psilocybin Access Rights. And we are really looking to encourage our politicians to change the scheduling around psychedelic medicine and psilocybin specifically as the sort of forerunner for that, to make psilocybin more available for researchers and for medical professionals. And this is the most important thing. If you don't take away anything else, under law, there's two things. There's the classification and the scheduling. And the classification is to do with whether or not you or I on the street are allowed to touch, hold, use a certain substance. And if the law says we're not, then they can take it away from us and they can lock us up in prison. And so there's class A, B, C, and A is the highest sentence that you could get, and C is the least. And people really understand that very well. And so they talk about, do you want to kind of make psilocybin legal for people? But that's not actually what we're asking for. We're not asking to change the classification. What we're asking for is the scheduling, which is a separate issue, because substances like morphine is a class A drug, but it's a Schedule 2 substance. And that's because every hospital pharmacy in the country carries morphine. It's a medicine. People need it. Ketamine is also in Schedule 2. Cocaine is in Schedule 2. Because these substances have been recognized throughout history as things that researchers and medical professionals need to access because they have potential therapeutic benefits. And that means that licensed people, doctors, researchers, are allowed to access them. The problem we have is that basically all psychedelics, with the exception of ketamine, is in Schedule 1. And that means it has no known medical benefit, potentially addictive, and has a sort of whole host of potential problems. People just shouldn't touch this substance. It shouldn't be accessed really at all. And you need a lot of home office licenses in order to access this substance at all. It puts a massive quash on the amount of research that you can do. And what we're asking for is to let the science do the science, let the scientists access these molecules, these psychedelic molecules, particularly psilocybin, because it has the biggest, clearest, most obvious clinical benefit, and do what they're doing in America and elsewhere, which is doing a whole load more research and allowing people a greater level of access to something that has the potential to heal them. And we believe, and our campaign group believe, that the existing research already suggests, and it does, that this is a medicine. And our recent advertising campaign asked the question, could magic mushrooms be medicine? Because psilocybin is the psychoactive compound in magic mushrooms. And it asked that question. But if you go to our website and you look up the data for yourself, I think you probably clearly see the answer is yes. And so this molecule should be in Schedule 2 or lower, and not where it is at the moment. So we're asking the government to change that.
Mm. It sounds quite an interesting thing to be involved in. How did this all cross your path? How did you get involved?
Everyone in the psychedelic field, I think, has a sort of foundation story, and it's usually not a very happy one to start with. It's very often that somebody that they were depressed or traumatized, or they had some kind of challenge, even cluster headaches, whatever it was, some kind of challenge they were facing, in which they found that psychedelic medicine found them and changed that. And in my case, I was really fortunate that the period of depression I suffered many years ago now was very brief. But the only reason it was brief was because I was able to access a psychedelic medicine that healed me. And I consider myself to be in the liberal elite of the UK. I have money that means I can travel to other countries in which these medicines are not, they are legal and they're able to be accessed. And more importantly, I consider myself in an elite because I know about this medicine. It's not even just about the money here. It's actually, people don't realize. And the thing that moves me to this campaign, and the reason I spend all of my time and my money and my energy in trying to do this and spread the word about this, is that people give up hope. The data we have suggests that something like 18 people kill themselves in this country every single day. Depression is the single biggest cause of disability in our country and the main driver of suicide. And people give up. They give up hope. They've often tried everything. A third of people who are depressed in this country will not respond to SSRI antidepressants, which are the leading treatment therapy. They've got no hope. And what we want to show, and with the government petition that we put together last year, we want to push for the fact that there absolutely is hope, and these medicines represent that hope. And for me, they were the thing that healed me from my depression. And I believe everybody has the right to know that, and to see and to have some hope for themselves that their depression might well come to an end. So that's, I think everyone in this field has some kind of foundational story, and mostly it's about mental health. But as I say, the amazing thing about psilocybin is that if you ask the Cluster Busters Association that we work with, whether they want access, they will say absolutely, because a small piece of psilocybe mushroom placed under the tongue at the beginning of a terrible cluster headache attack, which they describe as one of the worst pains known to man. Apparently, it's like having an ice pick through one of your eyes. The rate of suicide for that population is very, very high, much higher than elsewhere. And people sort of regularly kill themselves because of this level of pain. It's excruciating. They can't escape it. They can't medicate it away. And yet they will say a small piece of this mushroom will save them from these attacks. And so they are very much with us, fighting for the government to really start recognizing psilocybin is a medicine and magic mushrooms are a medicine.
I guess on that front, I just want to briefly ask you kind of what your thought is of the, because I guess this kind of, I know you're sort of coming at it from the kind of medical research point of view, but just as a sort of wider, I guess people like to use the word optics, right? Like sort of how does it look, or what do people think of it as the society and etc. And I wondered what your opinion was on the sort of state of the wellness industry in the UK and globally on that, for that front, because you mentioned the US. I'm assuming because the US is more like, it's almost like a series of small countries, right? Where like some of them are more liberal than others, etc. So California and places, got thriving CBD industries now. I just wondered what your sort of opinions are of kind of wellness and sort of where things are going. Is it very, very slow progress, or is there any hope anywhere?
It's too fast, actually. If you ask the psychedelic industry, which is and it's already in the millions and millions of pounds, and we're getting on for sort of billions of pounds worth of business being done in the psychedelic industry that exists, and with many sort of startups worldwide. I mean, one of the leading lights in the field IPO'd on the Nasdaq, and I think it was in 2021 for like 2 billion or something. It was sort of monstrous amounts of money that are flowing into these startups, often trying to look for new patents around these medicines. There's a lot going on in the field, and actually America is the test bed. In Oregon in 2020, there was a vote, a referendum where the state actually voted to set up a statewide healthcare system dedicated to the use of psilocybin, which would be taxed and would come into effect in January of this year. That's now happened, but we are at the same time going through this sort of teething period where the legislation in some places is catching up, but not always in the right ways. That we've seen a couple of industry giants in the psychedelic field, Synthesis, that run a retreat program, and Field Trip, another company that is providing sort of microdosing with ketamine, and they have both faltered in the last few months. There's sort of bankruptcies and creditors involved. And so in some cases, this is happening because whilst Oregon has voted, they've also had problems of getting premises, and you have to get through there's still a lot of stigma associated with these medicines, and people don't necessarily want clinics on their doorstep and in their backyard. And so I think that's been a challenge with Field Trip and getting some of the bricks and mortar clinics up and running. So it's really, I would say at the moment, it's extremely patchy. Anyone who works in mental health, at a pharmacological kind of level, I think already recognizes this is coming. They've been talking about psychedelics at Davos and these kinds of places for a long time. A friend just got back from South by Southwest and said that was the number one word, was psychedelic. It's not really going anywhere. And I don't believe, unlike, I don't want to say the metaverse, but some of the other sort of trends that we see in the media world, this is not a sort of flash in the pan. This is only going to go in one direction, but the speed with which that happens is, as I say, difficult to predict, patchy. There are barriers to business, and it's going to be what I would love to see is the UK really picking up the mantle, because there is a massive, frankly, financial opportunity for our country to lead in this wellness space, and to become a centre for the world's greatest retreat centres and psychedelic clinics. At the moment, we are well behind, but it wouldn't take very much for us to catch up and even sort of leapfrog what is happening in America, which is where these clinics are and delivery is sort of most advanced. It's still very much a burgeoning field. And I find, as a volunteer, who's got a day job, I find it almost impossible to keep on top of the latest information. There's a number of kind of psychedelic capital newsletters that keep me abreast of just about what's going on, but there's patents flying, and there's investments and seed rounds, and a lot of people trying to pursue trying to make money out of this space. What I would say is the reason we call ourselves psilocybin access rights and not the psilocybin rescheduling project, which is where we actually originally began, is that we're very conscious when we get the rescheduling, there will be a lot more to do to drive access, equitable access for people of all kind of persuasions and faiths and levels of income. And that's going to mean that a lot of these businesses who are making money out of psychedelic appetite and field in the market, I think that's only a good thing. It helps change the certainly the stigma associated with this field, and it shows people this is a real thing. Hey, you can make some money out of it. And frankly, a lot of our MPs listen to that, as I found. But the reality is that none of this is about making money. It's about healing people, and that is the main objective, and it must be the main objective. And that's really why we need our governments to pick this up. I mean, hell, it took Corona to happen for us to be able to move people off trains and roads and get them working from home, or to get to be able to see a doctor, online the day that you actually need to see them. Some of these things are just so basic, and yet because we have politicians who didn't and don't understand what the internet is for the last however many decades, we've been let down and we're behind, and that can't happen again. We need our politicians to be ahead on this and to actually steward these medicines through for access very carefully. They are extremely powerful. In the wrong hands and with the wrong people, they are genuinely dangerous. And so one of the reasons I do this is I know it's going to happen anyway, but if I can bring it forward, then that's lives saved as far as I'm concerned. There will be people who either won't kill themselves or will be free of the addictions that are killing them due to these medicines. And even if that's 1 month sooner, I'd happily have that on my gravestone. But the other reason that I do it is because as this comes into the popular consciousness, there are real risks that our politicians will be behind, and that there will either be setbacks for the field because of that, because bad things will happen, and that will effectively ruin it for everybody else, and the potential that's there. But equally, I just think there's a lot of harm that can be done if we don't carefully manage how people take these medicines in the right way. We need to kind of grow up as a society, and we need a bit more education. A lot of people died from the motor car when it was first introduced, and that's what we need to watch out for.
I know you mentioned the sort of the business case for these things. Like, look at all the money you guys could make, etc. And I think I remember reading a piece once. I'm sure it was like the London mayor, and went on a trip to the US and realized just how much money was to be made from CBD products, or perhaps actually it was cannabis products. Thinking about it, because obviously CBD is already around. And I know like the whole aim behind this is to help people, right? But I do wonder sometimes if the commercial argument is an easier way to get things through in capitalist societies, etc. And I would like to think that there is some kind of hope. But I was reading the other day that our wonderful Home Secretary wants to I don't know if this will actually happen, but she wants to reclassify cannabis as Class A. There was a Days Digital article about it.
And forget cannabis. They want to criminalize young people, using nitrous oxide, which I'm absolutely raging about. I can't. I feel incandescent with rage. I myself have been through this process recently where I've actually been trying to become a Conservative MP, and because I wanted to infiltrate the party and because I consider myself a believer in freedom first and foremost, and I've never been quite as cosmopolitan in my views as Labour or as the Liberal Democrats. And for all I can see is that the Conservative Party is one thing 1 minute, and then it's something quite else when it's got a new leader in charge. And so for a long time I thought, could I become an MP within the party? I'm clever, I'm bright, I've got my heart in the right place, but my God, those people, they won't let me in. And so and they're
just too far to the right, perhaps, to
It's not that, actually. The party is very mixed. This right left thing I think doesn't really apply anymore. And if I were in America, you'd consider me a Democrat, for example. There's a lot of Democrats within the Conservative Party. It really there's actually something. There's a really interesting way of looking at this that I could talk all day about, but I'm not certainly on the right wing. I've been looking at some other parties recently that I think might kind of capture that Democrat spirit. I'm actually I really, really believe in nationalizing a lot of infrastructure, and I really believe in science, and that was the main thing. And I've despaired of Labour as much as I've despaired of the Conservative Party in the last while. Our two parties just do not represent common sense when it comes to drug policy. We need evidence-based drug policy. And the fact that they would choose to harm young people by giving them a criminal license, a criminal record, giving young people whose brains aren't even fully developed by the age, and it takes until about the age of 25 for the prefrontal cortex to fully sort of knit together. So to give these young people a criminal record and ruin their lives for the sake of inhaling a substance which, in the right conditions, is not actually going to cause them all that much harm, potentially, and certainly no more than alcohol. I mean, alcohol is desperately harmful. So to tell them that they will now be punished by society for the rest of their lives because they've done something that causes littering, I mean, it beggars belief. I'm absolutely furious. And, I've always considered the Conservatives to be the party of freedom, that above all else should protect that freedom. And yet I'm seeing behaviour that I believe is closer to Singapore. I mean, are we going to ban chewing gum next? It's really monstrous. But the fact that this is what they call drug policy, the fact that they would go against all of the recommendations of the Advisory Council for Misuse of Drugs. What is the point of that council? I just would really love to see a politics of the future that represents science first. And I do not understand why we put up with this shoddy thinking when we should be, in that case, we should be dealing with the bloody littering problem, quite frankly. And we can do that. I work in a behavioural science practice. And, there are many great evidence-based interventions that we could be using. I mean, you go to Scandinavia, my husband is Scandinavian, and it's clean and people recycle and they don't litter. And those that do litter, their litter gets picked up because there's a return rate for plastic bottles and these kinds of things. You get paid when you return them to the recycling facility. And so there's no plastic bottles on the street and there's no metal canisters on the street. And it's very simple how we can deliver this. And instead they're going to ruin people's lives. And I think it's massively negligent. And I think it's grandstanding. It's the worst kind of politics. So I'm furious about this at the moment.
Yeah, I think you've had ex-leaders, people like Sir John Major and stuff have criticised the recent 3 PMs, I think, and I suppose as well as people like Gordon Brown. So sort of older statesmen have sort of come out and said, "What are you guys doing with all your decisions at the moment in the last few years?"
It's just a shame they won't let anyone into the party that has that some leadership that our elders would now recognise to be true. They've got this system. Which just means that anyone at the top of these parties is just obsessed with the party. That it's the party first. It's absolutely the party first, and it just simply cannot be like that. I think, again, to come back to this sort of Scandinavian thing, if we want to live like Scandinavians, the highest quality of life in the world, the happiest people, we got to bloody vote like Scandinavians. We need proportional representation. We need people to start doing politics around the cabinet table rather than within this monstrous organisation of the party. Quite frankly, we've become so outdated. And I grew up believing that first past the post, all of our system would allow us to have a dynamic country where we got stuff done and our executive was powerful. And I've seen nothing of that in the last few years. All we've seen is stagnation and bitter infighting within the parties themselves, let alone between the parties. We live in a society that is just ridden with conflict. And we need to do better. I mean, if anyone's seen Borgen, the programme about the Danish drama about the Danish Prime Minister, you'll see it's just a completely different style of politics that is practiced in the rest of the world, where they have got a proportionally representative system. And that is absolutely what we need. And I fear that otherwise we're still going to be having the same conversation, in a couple of years, where our government are so backward on drug policy reform, simply because they think that they need to appear to be tough rather than doing the right thing by the population. Any group of sensible people, provided that they're not terrified of the Daily Mail, will see that this is nothing but sense. And I mean, I have been talking now in the last year to Conservative MPs who are listening and who are recognising the backbenchers. Recognise that there is great potential in these medicines, because quite frankly we need it. We absolutely need it. And when did we give up on hope? When did we start saying that we're managing decline as a country, and that that our problems are so great, are particularly our mental health challenges, that they are so great that we just give up on people? You see people sitting on, I live in Margate, you see people sitting on the seafront drinking, taking drugs. And these people we give up on them. Our veterans, who are more likely to, kill themselves, for whom more have killed themselves coming back from our combat zones than have died in combat in Afghanistan and Iraq. We've lost more of them when they came home. These are the people that we write off as a society and say there's nothing to be done for them. They're sort of damaged goods. Well, they're not. There is hope. And I've seen with my own eyes the kind of miracles that can occur when you give people the right tools with these powerful medicines in the right circumstances. And it's not to say that will help and that will work for absolutely everyone on every occasion, but where it does work, it matters to that person's life and to all of those around them. And I despair at the moment. I'm so angry about the nitrous oxide nonsense that it's really, it's such a small, insignificant piece of legislation for the government and something that they think will win them some kind of middle class vote from people who care about antisocial behaviour, when all it will do is criminalise young children and ruin their lives. And I think that those consequences are too great, and that if we really want to prioritise harm and reduction of harm, which is what I think is the greater good there, then we've got to find other solutions for littering.
I mean, yeah, I think all of their battles at the moment are small battles, like small-minded thinking, small battles, and all short-term, tiny culture war wins, or whatever you want to call them. Although I saw a TikTok the other day that was someone in the US, and they were sort of saying the same kind of thing about the US. They were saying, of all the battles you could be picking, climate change, and they listed about 100 things. They said, what you're doing is attacking TikTok. That's your battle at the moment. And yeah, it does feel very, very small-minded thinking. I do wonder if, I don't know, sometimes societies almost sidestep their governments and they just kind of get on with change themselves where they can. And I do wonder if more of that's going to come from people. I was reading an article recently about UK wellness trends that was talking about the shroom boom within mushrooms as the new CBD. And it also talked about things like mindful drinking with Gen Z and millennials moving away from binge drinking culture. I guess just deciding that they're creating the world that they want to be in, sort of thing, and just to hell with everybody else a little bit. And I wonder, are you seeing these kinds of things too? Of people just going, the people above us aren't helping us, so we're just going to try and create our own reality.
Yeah, and psychedelics absolutely have a massive role to play in that. I think they do they literally open people's minds, provide them with new perspectives, and very often cause some reprioritization of what is important in their lives. There are those out there who are referring to them as sort of ecodelics, in that a great number of people in the modern era who experience these medicines not only become more connected to nature afterwards, but a great number of them are becoming more activist around climate change. And that might be the cultural container in which we're living in, that this is the greatest challenge for our species, and that actually the medicines are helping people to kind of live in alignment with that which they really want, which is a safer, healthier planet. I think it's interesting, like the whole wellness movement was at some point, it was the stuff that was done to you. It was I think of the kind of absolutely fabulous world of, she paid for the massage and the colonic irrigation and blah, 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 and all of these sort of treatments. And over time, as we again have kind of grown up a little bit as a society, as we evolve forward, I think people have started to see that it's all about your own consciousness of like how you deal with your own agency in the world, and rather than expecting anyone else to fix you and to treat you, you are the treatment. And again, psychedelic medicine at its best has that very much that effect, and it's not something that's happening to you. It's not in a psychedelic therapy experience. The medicine is the medicine, not the therapist, and nobody else is kind of treating you. Your level of openness, your level of preparation, and ultimately your willingness to engage with that experience afterwards, something that we call integration after the experience, is absolutely mission critical to the success of that, in terms of it being able to treat the challenge that you come to the medicine with, whether that is PTSD or depression or addiction, anxiety. It's absolutely, it's your role in making that work. And I think there is a shifting emphasis now, of which psychedelics are very much a part of that, of putting the onus back on you. It's your life to live, and you're the only one who can make it the brilliant, beautiful adventure that it ought to be. But I think psychedelics have a big role to play in that shift in emphasis, from let the world sort of treat me to I am the world, and I will live the best way that I possibly can.
I mean, that sounds relatively hopeful.
Utopian. I'm told I'm a utopian. And this is the thing, because people get very protective and upset about the psychedelic movement, and they say things like, "Oh, you're a utopian," like that's a bad thing. And there's a lot of protective influences who are very wary of the hype. So you talk a lot about the hype in psychedelic medicine, and the fact that people, might want it to fix them in one dose, in one experience, and if it doesn't, is that a big problem? And again, I say the emphasis is on you. It's your life, is your story, and if you don't feel that you are healed after a psychedelic experience, that's fine, because life is every single moment, and there's another moment in which you feel you can kind of bring that joy into your life again. It's always possible, and just because you feel healed from one trauma in 1 minute doesn't mean to say further down the road that you're not going to suffer again. It's not like a one trick experience. It's not a silver bullet, and it won't work for everyone, and all of those things are true. And yet I do also, I'm very fond of saying, I believe that this is our generation's penicillin moment, in that penicillin doesn't fix everything, but it's damn helpful, and you wouldn't want to live in a world in which you didn't have access to it, and in which it saved the life of you or your friends, your family. So this is important, and it's sort of not trifling. I think actually the far-reaching impact of having a tool that can really help aid our mental health in the same way that penicillin has with our physical health, is that the impact is not just on the individual, as I say. It's actually on domestic violence and obesity and lung cancer and all of the things that we spend money on as a society trying to fix. There are so many knock-on impacts from poor mental health that these medicines have the potential to treat and to help. And if that makes me utopian, then I'd rather live in a world where I do have hope for the future. And it shocks me that our politicians today do not have that hope within them. I think that they do not command that hope within the population. And the behaviour that we're seeing around drug policy in particular, and how we treat young people is disgusting, frankly. And we ought to do better.
Yeah, well, I guess, we had a theme at the magazine. I think it was actually last year. It was utopias and dystopias. So it was sort of, which one are we living in right now, or are we in sort of a bit of a both? And annoyingly, they're only monthly themes in a way, but something like that, you can dig into it forever. I know we're sort of running out of time, so I just wanted to ask you, how did the campaign actually go? The Could Magic Mushrooms Be Medicine? How was it received? Because I guess it's a few weeks back, or maybe longer now.
Yes, yeah. So launched in January, and I think it's well received. Our job really is to raise awareness of these medicines and to create the conditions in which our politicians feel that the social norm has shifted enough that they are prepared to act and to not won't live in this sort of inertia anymore, which is what we've got right now. There's a lack of urgency to do something, so just seeing it, and at least I think 100,000 people would have seen. Just even from the Evening Standard article, which has a fairly big circulation. So there's some success for us there, and in sign-ups, and in the appetite for people to engage with us and to not think that this is some kind of woo weird thing, but that this is the future. I mean, we're seeing a sea change in how the media is dealing with us and with the medicine more generally. And the same is true of how the politicians are dealing with us. So we're looking forward. We've got some, hopefully there's going to be some more goings on in Parliament that we have up our sleeve as well. And that we've been working on closely with the Conservative Drug Policy Reform Group. The PAR was kind of, it sort of sprang out of there and became its own beast. But we were working very closely with them on the lobbying side to get as many politicians engaged. And I think we're really starting to see that now. We've got plans for this year to try and raise some more money to do some more advertising and just further the word. And if there's any media owners out there that want to engage and help us in spreading this, then I believe that we will change the law, and it may happen very quickly. We are making progress with the Home Office. We need to shuffle that over the line, and out of home advertising is actually really powerful media for that, because it's not something you see on your phone. It's something that that everybody else has seen, and that's really powerful for the kind of social norming that we're seeking to do. So print also, we'd love a metro wrap. That would be our dream. But that will cost us money. So we're engaging in some sort of fundraising now, and anyone that wants to help volunteer, put their arm in, any famous people listening or people with famous friends, we want to talk to you, see if you can help, because I do think we'll look back and go, what a world we lived in where we didn't have access to this. It'll be incredible to our children. That this was ever not available, and that this was actually, we were barred from access. So
it's kind of nuts, isn't it? Something that's essentially natural. It was just sitting there in the world.
Grows out of the ground, and it can completely change your life for the better.
Yeah, and we're like, no, that's too easy.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I know you sort of done the plea, etc. But I was wondering, as a final thought, is there any thing that you'd like to sort of impress upon people, whether they can help or not, or signing up to newsletter or anything that you'd like them to do?
All of the above: newsletters, websites, social, all of that. But the thing I would say more than anything else is talk to people. Talk to people that you love that are suffering, people with addiction problems, with anxiety problems, with depression, and people you might not even think that are feeling that way. But talk to them, and talk to them about this medicine, because it exists, and nobody in this country should be killing themselves for want of hope that they can live a better life, because there is hope, and that's the most important message, I think.
Sounds good. Well, we'll put a bunch of links in the show notes to various things and projects and stuff you're up to, and hopefully lots of people will get involved, and you'll have to let us know if they do and what happens. But yeah, for now, just say thank you so much for a really interesting discussion, and thanks for coming on the Media Cat Magazine podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.